state of Australia is an island, a beautiful island with two names and two faces. In 1642, Abel Tasman, Dutch navigator, sailed down and roughly charted part of the wild and rugged coast of a new land. From the west coast, he skirted the southern shores and anchored off the east coast. Here his carpenter planted the Dutch flag. Tasman named his discovery Van Diemen's Land. Early explorers continued to chart the coast, thought to be part of the Australian mainland, but it was Matthew Flinders and George Bass who first discovered Bass Strait and circumnavigated the island in 1798. From the initial British settlement in 1803, the island proved a challenge to man's courage and endurance. Geographically, half the island isolated itself from man's development. High-flung mountain ranges stretching the length of the western coast defied exploration. In the center of the island, useless for cultivation and uninhabited, a high plateau of magnificent lakes and rivers rose, with great barriers of living rock from the fertile valley below. In the early bitter years, a convict settlement was established at Port Arthur. And later, Hobart Town became a roistering centre for the whaling fleets. But during the 19th century, the island changed its harsh name and harsh beginning. It now had the softly flowing name Tasmania and a gentle face of agricultural beauty which we can trace today. But by the beginning of the 20th century, it was realized that the key to future progress lay in the wild side of the island, the high plateau and the western ranges. Here was snow and water in a huge catchment area. With the water harnessed to turn turbines, Tasmania could have the new power of electricity to promote industry, controlled water, available as a source of irrigation and as a vital raw material in industrial production. In 1895, the streets of Launceston were lit by electricity generated from a small hydro station at Duck Reach on the South Esk River, about 2 miles from the town. The generators of this pioneering effort are now a museum piece. In comparison, the generators of Liapootah power station look like a space-age fantasy. The Poatina power station, opened in 1964, has turbines with a rated output of 346,000 horsepower. The 579 horsepower of Duck Reach today would scarcely produce enough power to boil 250 electric kettles. Poatina, an Aboriginal word meaning cavern, aptly names the power station, which is 500 feet below the surface. The pipeline marches steeply up the mountainside and disappears into a tunnel driven through the mountains to the intake at the Great Lake, high on the central plateau. How does water work to produce over 1 million horsepower? Let's draw a simple parallel. A wild horse must be caught, controlled and harnessed before it works for man. Similarly, these 3 basic steps can be applied to the tamed water from the highland plateau. Water is caught by a series of dams across outlets of natural lakes and across rivers to form large artificial lakes. Diversion weirs, canals, flumes, tunnels and pipelines are the links to control the flow and passage of the water as it surges step by step down to the power stations. Harnessing is done by a chain of power stations. Through them, the controlled water moving from one to another drives the turbines. These turn the generators, producing electrical energy for the entire island. Transformers step up the electricity to a higher voltage for transmission throughout the state. And to supply the power to work for man, the power lines swing away north, south, east and west across the countryside with electricity for homes and farms, for offices and shops, for industries large and small, many of vital importance to Australia's economy. South, to the largest producer of zinc in the southern hemisphere. To a chocolate factory near Hobart with its multitude of automated wrapping machines. And to a textile printing mill. South of Hobart, to Australia's only producer of calcium carbide. To a hardwood pelletizing mill at Geeveston. On to the Derwent Valley and the only newsprint mill in the Commonwealth. North to Bell Bay and the largest aluminium producer in Australia. Power demand here is 148,000 kilowatts. To Australia's only producer of ferromanganese, a vital ingredient in the manufacture of high-grade steel. To Launceston to feed the power demands of a woolen mill. And to Railton with its cement works. More power for Devonport and a weaving factory. And on to a carpet manufacturing plant with new spinning and dyeing machinery. To processing plants for the quick freezing of vegetables from the rich farmlands of the northwest. Then to Burnie and the paper mills. But the demand for power continues to grow. The integration of thermal power with the hydro system has already begun and will continue. But water is still the chief source of energy. A continuous study of the growth of electrical load is made by the Hydroelectric Commission. To meet future demand, several new developments are underway, including the 7-stage Mersey Forth power project. The Mersey and Forth rivers, north and northwest of the high plateau catchment area, will have 7 power stations harnessing the flow of water from another portion of the wild mountain ranges. One of the first steps was the planning and construction of a town, Gowrie Park at the foot of Mount Roland, headquarters of the workforce needed for the $103 million scheme. Two and a half thousand men, women and children live here. The men working on the first stages of catching and controlling the waters. They work on construction of dams at Devil's Gate, Sethana, Parangana and Roallan. When the scheme is completed, another section of the wild side of the island will have been tamed to provide more electricity for Tasmania's growing needs. The mineral potential that may be wrested from these mountain ranges stirs the imagination. In the Queenstown area on the west coast is the greatest copper mine in the state, Mount Lyell. And in this same mineral-rich area are Tasmania's largest zinc-producing mines. The electrolytic zinc company extracts concentrates from the mixed zinc-copper-lead sulfides mined at Rosebery. The state's greatest output of lead comes from mines in this region. Probably the most widely mined metal in Tasmania has been tin. Production had fallen off, but world demand for tin has given greater impetus to new exploration and development in the mountains at Renison Bell and Mount Cleveland. The integration of the two faces of the island to further the state and national economy moves to a new project, the mining of iron ore at Savage River. The very name suggests the drama in developing the mountain of iron that set able Tasman's compass swinging widely as he sailed the forbidding west coast. Isolated in the northwest, the deposits have been known since 1890. Mined, crushed and concentrated, the powdered ore is mixed to a slurry with water and piped by a 9-inch diameter pipeline 52 miles across rugged country to Port Latter on Tasmania's north coast. Pelletized and baked, the ore is shipped to Japan. The southwestern quarter of Australia's island state is a region of high rainfall. Uninhabited, entirely undeveloped, the southwest was until recently largely unexplored. This is the country of the Gordon River and its tributaries. With an eye to the power potential of this great catchment area, the Hydroelectric Commission has already built a road to the junction of the Serpentine and Gordon Rivers. Here in the deep gorges of fast-flowing rivers, geologists, surveyors, hydrologists and engineers are investigating the prospects of harnessing this remote area. Already the potential has been assessed at 1.5 million horsepower, and the first stage of the Gordon River development will begin producing hydroelectric power in 1975. As these modern-day explorers move into the southwest quarter of Tasmania, they see what lies beyond the road, an area of unique scenic beauty, with great hydroelectric potential, perhaps mineral wealth yet undreamed of, new routes for the tourist. Whatever it may be, Australia's island state is now looking to its wild side.